Hey guys, it's Miss Jaco. I am here to go over the Lesson 8 concept development with you. For this lesson, you are going to need your Lesson 8 template, which is either in your workbook or it should be located on the concept development page in our My Learning course. So let's take a look at our I can statement. So I can use understanding of fraction equivalence to investigate decimal numbers on the place value chart expressed in different units. So today's lesson is really going to be all about expressing our decimals in different units. So this will be written, we can write them as ones and tenths, or we might be writing it just as tenths or just as hundredths. And this is intended to really get us fluently thinking about our tenths and hundredths and how they can be equal to each other. So let's take a look at problem number 1. Represent numbers in unit form in terms of different units using the area models. So in these area models, I want us to start off by recording 2 ones, 4 tenths in our area models. So go ahead and give yourself some time to work and shade these area models by pausing the video and then play it when you're ready to go over the answer. All right, so to shade these 2 ones, 4 tenths, we would start by shading 2 whole area models to represent our 2 ones because each area model is representative of 1 whole or 1 one. So to represent 2 ones, we would shade 2 whole area models. To represent our 4 tenths, we would shade 4 out of these 10 pieces here to represent our 4 tenths. So I want us to think, looking at this first area model, how many tenths make this area model up? How many tenths are represented here in this area model? If you said 10 tenths, then you would be correct. I would like you to record this in unit form underneath our first area model and underneath our second area model since they are both representative of 10 tenths. Now what about this area model here? How many tenths are represented in this area model? If you said 4 tenths, then you would be correct. So I want us to think, what is 10 tenths plus 10 tenths plus 4 tenths? If you said 24 tenths, then you would be correct. This is also equivalent to 2 ones, 4 tenths written in decimal form. So 2 and 4 tenths is equal to 24 tenths. True or false? If you said true, then you would be correct. All right, so now, moving on, I would like you to get another set of area models in front of you to record 2 ones and 40 hundredths. So in these area models, we are going to be recording 2 ones, 40 hundredths. Go ahead and give yourself some time to shade by pausing the video. Remember to record hundredths, we are going to probably need to draw some horizontal lines. So go ahead and pause the video and give yourself some time to work. All right, so to show 2 ones and 40 hundredths, we are going to be following those same steps to shade the 2 ones as in our first example, because if we're shading 2 ones again, we're going to want to shade 2 whole area models to represent those 2 ones. Now to represent our 40 hundredths, we would need to draw 9 horizontal lines to create 10 equal pieces out of each tenth. So by cutting up each tenth into 10 pieces, we are making hundredths. So to shade our 40 hundredths, we would shade 4 columns because there are 10 hundredths in each column. So 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 would give you your 40 hundredths. All right, so now what I would like you to do is I want you to record an addition sentence just like we did up here. I want you to record an addition sentence underneath these area models to show how many hundredths are represented. So we are writing an addition sentence to represent how many hundredths are in these area models here. And I want you to do it in unit form just like we did up here. So go ahead and pause the video to give yourself some time to write your addition sentence to represent how many hundredths we have in these area models here. All right, so for our addition sentence, remember I said that I wanted our addition sentence to represent how many hundredths we have. So if I have 10 tenths here, I'm saying that I want this represented as hundredths. So how would I write 10 tenths as hundredths? That's right, it would be 100 hundredths. So each area model that is completely shaded is representative of 100 hundredths. So you would want to write that underneath your two completely shaded area models. And then how many hundredths does this area model represent? If you put 40 hundredths, then you would be correct. So altogether, how many hundredths do I have total? 240 hundredths. So as you can see, we kind of just took our area models in tenths and rewrote it as hundredths. So we can say that 240 hundredths is equal to 2 ones 40 hundredths and also 2 ones 4 tenths, because if we look at our area models, there's like everything is still shaded the same. We haven't really added any more shading between the two models. We have 2 ones 4 tenths, 2 ones 40 hundredths, and it has the same amount shaded for both. So like I said before, 240 hundredths is equivalent to 24 tenths, or 2 ones 4 tenths. All right, so we are ready to move on to number 2. So for each one of these problems, we're going to be doing very similar things. We're going to be rewriting units in different units. So we might be rewriting ones as tenths or tenths as hundredths. So remember, this is just to really get us fluently thinking about our decimal numbers. So for problem number 2, we are going to be representing numbers in unit form in forms of different units by using place value discs. So we are going to show 2 ones 4 tenths in our place value chart using place value discs. This place value chart should be available for you to write in that lesson 8 template. If you don't have the lesson 8 template, you might just need to draw your own place value chart, but we are going to be recording 2 ones 4 tenths in our place value chart using place value discs. And then if you notice, the second set of directions says express the number in unit form as it's shown on the chart. So we're going to be doing 2 things here before you pause, or while the video is paused. You're going to be recording 2 ones 4 tenths in our place value chart, and then I want you to record the value in unit form underneath those place value columns. So go ahead and pause the video to give yourself some time to write, and play it whenever you're ready to go over the answer. All right, so to show those 2 ones 4 tenths, we would be showing 2 ones in the ones place and 4 tenths in the tenths place. So remember, like I said, like a minute ago, we're going to be recording this as different units. So I want you to record these 2 ones, almost forgot our unit form down below. Our 2 ones 4 tenths, I want you to record that as just tenths by decomposing or unbundling these ones, okay? So think about, how can I unbundle those ones to record it as just tenths, all right? So You might want to think to yourself, 2 ones is equal to how many tenths? Go ahead and pause the videos to give yourself some time to record your ones as tenths and play it when you're ready to go over the answer. All right, so hopefully we remember from the past few lessons that we have learned that 10 tenths is equal to 1 1. So 20 tenths is going to be equal to our 2 ones here, and we can prove that by unbundling each of these ones and turning it into 10 tenths. All right, so now I want you to think, how many tenths were we able to create by unbundling those 2 ones? How many tenths do we have total in our tenths column? That's right, we've got 20 tenths plus 4 tenths makes a total of 24 tenths. Now I want you to think, how can I express my 24 tenths as hundredths? So far we have recorded our 2 ones, 4 tenths as just tenths, and we turned that into 24 tenths. Now I want us to record our tenths as hundredths. So you might think, how would I do that, Ms. Jaco? How would I record my tenths as hundredths? Well, we can follow that same step where we unbundled each one to make tenths. We can unbundle each of these tenths to make hundredths. And you might be thinking to yourself, Ms. Jaco, that is going to be a lot of place value discs in the hundredths place. If we have to take each one of these tenths and make 10 hundredths, that's a lot of work. I don't want to do that, and I'm with you there. We're not going to do that. I think that we can record our tenths as hundredths without doing the unbundling. So to kind of get us thinking how many how many hundredths are in 24 tenths, I want us to think, well, first, how many hundredths are in 1 tenth? So think 1 tenth is equal to how many hundredths? Well, 1 tenth is equal to 10 hundredths. How many hundredths are in 2 tenths? Well, 20 hundredths are in 2 tenths. And then maybe I want you to think, how many hundredths are in 10 tenths? Well, 100 hundredths are in 10 tenths. So now I want you to think to yourself, how many hundredths are in 24 tenths? Remember, we're not breaking these down into the hundredths place. I just want you to maybe think if you can use that pattern to figure out how many hundredths are in 24 tenths. Go ahead and pause the video to give yourself maybe some time to work it out on paper or just think about it mentally. All right, so if you were able to figure out that there are 240 hundredths in 24 tenths, then awesome job on figuring that out correctly. Now, if you are a little confused as to how I got 240 hundredths, well, think. I want us to use kind of what we recorded here to help us. So remember, we were trying to figure out how many hundredths are in 24 tenths. Well, we said down here that 10 tenths is equal to 100 hundredths. So we could break apart 24 tenths into 10 tenths, another 10 tenths, and then 4 tenths. And then if we think to ourselves what we wrote here, we're saying, oh, well, I know that 10 tenths is equal to 100 hundredths. I know this 10 tenths is equal to 100 hundredths. And then I know that 4 tenths is equal to 40 hundredths. Then 100 hundredths plus 100 hundredths plus 40 hundredths gives me that 240 hundredths. So don't forget, this lesson is all about trying to get us to think fluidly about our place values. So you might be thinking, Mr. Code, this doesn't seem to have a point. Why are we just rewriting ones as tenths, tenths as hundredths? It doesn't really seem like I'm learning anything new. No, maybe not, but remember, this is just to kind of really get us fluidly thinking about how many tenths make how many hundredths make a tenth, how many tenths make a one, and kind of really also building off of that knowledge that 10 of any unit makes the next biggest unit, and we can take any one unit and unbundle it into 10 smaller units. So it's really just building on that fluency and our ability to think about these numbers in different ways. All right, so I think we are ready to go on to number 3. All right, so for number 3, we're going to be doing that same thing for number 1 and number 2, or so problem 1 and problem 2. We are going to be decomposing mixed numbers and express them as smaller units. So the first decimal that we have to start with is 3 ones, 6 tenths. And I want us to rewrite 3 ones, 6 tenths as just tenths. So I'm going to start by asking ourselves how many tenths make up our 3 ones? Well, 3 ones is equal to 30 tenths. And we have 6 tenths. So all together, our decimal 3 ones and 6 tenths is equal to 36 tenths, or 36 over 10. And now I want us to rewrite that as hundredths. So 36 tenths is equal to how many hundredths? Well, I can break apart my 36 tenths into 10 tenths, 10 tenths, 10 tenths, and 6 tenths. So this is kind of using that same strategy that we did in problem number 2, because I can think, if you can break apart your decimal or fraction into smaller pieces and then kind of chunk it out that way, I think it would definitely be easier to solve for how many hundredths, because I feel like sometimes it can get confusing to solve mentally. So that's why I like to maybe break apart it into a number bond. So we know that 10 tenths is equal to 100 hundredths. We know, so I'm going to write that for each. And then I know that 6 tenths is equal to 60 tenths. So 60 hundredths. Add that all together. I've got 100 hundredths, 200 hundredths, 300 hundredths, 360 hundredths, or 360 over 100. So these are all equivalent to each other. We can kind of picture it in a place value chart, just like number 2. It's kind of like we took those 3 ones, unbundled them, and turned them all into tenths, and now we have 36 tenths in the tenths place. Then I took all of those 36 tenths, and I unbundled them into the hundredths place, giving me 360 hundredths. So this is just helping us think about our place values fluently. So I'm going to give you one that I want you to try on your own, and then play the video when you're ready to go over it. So I'm going to give you 5 ones, 2 tenths. I want you to record our 5 ones, 2 tenths as just tenths, and then I want you to record it as just hundredths, all right? So go ahead and pause the video, give yourself some time to work. You can definitely use the first one to help you. You can go back to problem number 2 to kind of help you as well. So go ahead and play the video whenever you're ready to go over the answer. All right, so you're ready to go over the answer. So we've got 5 ones, 2 tenths. First step, just write it out in tenths. Well, I know that 5 ones, 2 tenths is made up of 2 tenths, and 5 ones. So how many tenths are equal to our 5 ones? Well, 50 tenths are made up of 5 ones, because if we think 10 tenths is equal to 1, 20 tenths is equal to 2, 30 tenths is equal to 3, and so on, we get 50 tenths is equal to 5. So we can add those two together to get our total tenths. We have 50 plus 2 to give us 52 tenths, or 52 over 10. For our hundredths, following that same pattern where we can break it apart into manageable pieces. So 52 tenths can be broken apart into 10 tenths, another 10 tenths to make 20 tenths, another 10 tenths to make 30, another 10 tenths to make 40, another 10 tenths to make 50, and then our leftover 2 tenths. We can't forget about those 2 tenths. That's still part of our answer. So if each one of these 10 tenths is equal to 100 hundredths, then I've got 100 hundredths, 200 hundredths, 300 hundredths, 400 hundredths, 500 hundredths, plus 2, I get 520 hundredths. I'm sorry, I wrote this just as tenths. Sorry, 2 tenths is equal to 20 hundredths, so it's going to equal 520. Actually, I want to write that in unit form just to kind of keep this the same. 520 hundredths, or 520 over 100. So those are all equal to each other. All right, so I want to do one more example, but I'm going to do this one with you guys because this one's kind of, we're like bumping it up in terms of difficulty. So our next decimal is 12 and 5 tenths. So we are going to write this as just tenths, and then we're going to write that as just hundredths. If you want to kind of try this on your own, you could pause the video now and then kind of challenge yourself on your own and then check it with me by playing the video again. But if you think that maybe you need me to walk you through this one, because you will see something like this on the problem set, if you want me to walk you through it, then just go ahead and keep watching. All right, so I was thinking about the best way to explain this because we have 110 that we are trying to turn into tenths. So we can't think like, oh, we're moving it over one place value to the right. We're going 2 place values to the right. So that might be kind of hard for us to imagine in our head. So I decided to break down my decimal by unit. And so 5 tenths, that's already in tenths. 2 ones, we know that that is equal to 20 tenths. Well, I'm going to break apart my 110 into 10 ones. And so now I'm going to think 110 is equal to 10 ones, and we know that each one of those ones is equal to 10 tenths. So if I have each of these 10 ones is equal to 10 tenths, and I've got 10 of them, it's like I'm doing 10 ones times 10 to give me 100 tenths. Okay? So now we can kind of add these all together. So we've got 100 tenths plus 2 tenths plus 5 tenths. That's going to give you 125 tenths. And then we can turn that into hundredths by thinking, okay, each one of those 125 tenths is going to move over to the hundredths place. So I'm going to like break, so here's our fraction form. And I can write 125 tenths, and I can break it apart in a number bond by doing 10 tenths, 20 tenths, 30 tenths, 40 tenths, 50 tenths, 60 tenths, 70 tenths, 80 tenths, 90 tenths, 100 tenths, 110 tenths, 120 tenths, and then I've got 5 tenths. So I've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 125 tenths represented here. I know maybe this isn't the most neat way to kind of record it, but I also just want to keep following that same strategy to kind of help us see how we are getting the hundredths that we're getting. So we know that each one of these tenths is equal to 100 hundredths. So I can count by 100 hundredths now to get how many hundredths I would have. And I also know that this is going to be 50 hundredths. So, all right, so this would be 100 hundredths, 200 hundredths, 300 hundredths, 400 hundredths, 500 hundredths, 600 hundredths, 700 hundredths, 800 hundredths, 900 hundredths, 1,000 hundredths, 1,100 hundredths, 1,200 hundredths, 1,250 hundredths. Woo! Some of you guys also might have been noticing, well, Miss Jaco, like, we've been multiplying by 10 each time. So you might have already noticed that pattern. And you might have thought, we're just going to add a 0 at the end, which, yes, but I also want you to understand, like, how we're getting the answer that we're getting. And you're not just thinking, oh, I know to add a 0, so that's what I'm going to do, and I know the answer is right, but I don't really know why that's right. So I wanted to make sure to really break it down for you. So 1,250 hundredths. Whew. All right, so that brings me to the end of the lesson 8 concept development. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it informative, and I hope you find that it helps you on the lesson 8 problem set. Now, remember, if you make an attempt at the lesson 8 problem set and you're really struggling, you can always go back and watch this video again. You can always watch this video once, watch it a second time, and watch it as you do the problem set. So also the times are going to be down below in terms of what I go over and like what time that starts. So also you can kind of make navigating the video easier, because maybe you're struggling with a specific question and you're like, oh, where in Miss Jaco's video did it go over this to help me? I'm going to have all that information down below. So thanks for watching. I hope you guys are doing well, and until next time, bye.